We want to thank you for taking a little bit of time with us as we celebrate the steel industry. And we also know you're here to learn a little bit more about QNEC, as well as to learn a little bit more about the user-friendly updates that we've made. From a user's standpoint, our updates is a response to your feedback. One of the number one problems of our industry is schedule drift, especially for the steel fabricators, and we tackle this problem at QNEC. I would like to now turn this over to Josh Hines. Josh is a 17-year veteran of the industry. He's QNEC's field marketing manager, and he's someone that many of you are familiar with from your own QNEC training, as well as your projects that you've been doing with our software. Josh, here you go. Thank you.
Thanks, Christian. All right, well, thanks everybody. Let's get into all the fun stuff we're looking for today. So first off, we're gonna have our schedule. We'll look at quick deliverables that we're gonna be providing for you. Button 3 settings, as you can see on the right-hand side, you'll start to see some of these screenshots to kind of help you point where we're going. Next will be button 3, set UDA job. QNEC UDA updates. Geometry revisions. So when you're adjusting in a model, moving, rotating, mirroring, copying, so on and so forth. Same thing with design revisions, profiles, loads. Impact to shop drawings. This could be a bigger one from a lot of users. Parts and GUIDs, what happens to running dimensions, sections, welds. I'll do a quick recap, model sync and submittal packages, syncing the entire model, syncing just a sequence. And then if QNEC is not installed on a machine, is there an impact to the project, and what is that? So as I said before, button 3 settings, we have the ability to autofill. So users will have the option to add a prefix, a suffix, a date and a time. So when you press button 1, the session information is already filled out for you.
All right, let's look at the settings for button 3. So we're going to go ahead and set up more of an automated approach where we can select the job that we want to use, and it's going to automatically show up in that fashion. Prefix as well. You can also add a suffix. I tend to do something along the lines of what I'm working on at that time, maybe a sequence. I also like to do the date and time check. What that's going to do is you're really never going to have to fill out the session name again. So what you'll see me do here is open up button 1. It's already been predefined with down to the second. So I can go ahead and select and say submit. And then we will open button 1 more time. And all I have to do is select the materials, submit, and we are good to go.
All right, next we'll be getting into button 3, set UDA job. So for your start and your end locations, you can actually set more than one preference that we've set up on the project. So when you run it at one time, but it chooses where you're going to be getting your information from.
All right, let's check out the set UDA job, which is going to be in button 3. First thing I'm going to do is bring some connections in here using sample 1 as the preferences that have been set up. As these come in, you will notice extended shear plate with top and bottom stabilizers, both on the left and on the right. So as you can see, there are the extended shear plates there. Now that was done, as I'm going to show you, with sample 1 set of preferences, and you'll see that those are both contained here. But what if you have a secondary or third or fourth set of preferences, something very specific to, or unique to certain locations, and you want to apply those maybe when prepping the model and do it all in one run? Let's go to button 3. Go ahead and go to the set UDA job button, and we'll do just that. So what we're going to do is go to the company, and we're going to predetermine start and end locations for sample 1 and sample 2, extended, and then double angle, bolted, bolted. We're going to select the materials we want to apply it to, go ahead and say OK, and now it's going to write that information to that beam. So now we'll send it out, and as soon as it comes back, what we should expect to see is an extended shear plate, same top and bottom stabilizer on the left from sample 1, and on the right you should see a double angle bolted bolted from sample 2. Now what you would have noticed is when you do this run, it did say sample 1, didn't say anything about sample 2. Doesn't matter, it's already been predetermined what we're going to do. As you can see right here, we have sample 1 and sample 2, and that's what it's going to use when we do that. So again, it's in button 3, set UDA job.
Okay, so next on the list is going to be QNect UDA updates. So we've added 3 updates. One is called QConnect, one is re-engineer, and we've added to our pull down list to override from our preferences. Now we have extended full depth.
Okay, let's look at the beam end 1 and end 2 UDA updates. We'll go to the user defined fields, go to the QNect tab. First one we're going to look at is going to be QConnect, which we're going to say no to the end location. So the goal for this is if we have specific connections, maybe they're one-off or something we are told has to be done outside of the realm of QConnect. Well, we know we're not going to connect there, so we're going to tell the system just that. No, we do not want to connect. So now when the connection comes in, you will get the connection on the left hand or the start, but on the right, you will see that there is a QConnect red cone for no connect. We'll go ahead and open that. And it tells us not connected due to user preference. And that's because the UDA says no. So next, we're going to look at the re-engineer. They're defaulted to say no. We're going to go ahead and tell the start location we actually want this to say yes. So even though it's a viable connection, it's good, we want to, instead of delete, we want to go ahead and rerun this. And in this case, it started with sample 1. You'll see the new dialog here. We can do what we selected or all the revised. We're going to go ahead and go to sample 2. So this should come in as a double angle, bolted, bolted. So we didn't have to remove anything, delete anything, rerun in that fashion. All we had to do is tell it, yes, we want to re-engineer. All right, there we are. There's your double angle, bolted, bolted. The next update for UDAs is going to be one more item we've added to our pull down menu, and that is full depth extended shear plate. So we're going to go ahead and tag it as such, send it off. As soon as it's ready, it'll come back. Go to button 2, and we should have a full depth extended shear plate. Previously, we had to call that a spandrel, and it would have multiple beams that are full depth. And more than likely, you only want one or a handful of those to actually be full depth. And now we have that capability. So again, QConnect, re-engineer, and our added full depth extended shear plate.
All right, next on the list is geometry revisions. So a lot of people have asked about moving, rotating, mirroring, copying, anything along those lines. When I do this and there's a connection here, I have to immediately rerun or delete. That is no more.
Let's look at model adjustments. Moving members first. So you'll see we have a double angle connection. We're going to move one beam. And when we do so, you'll notice that the cone turns red and moves right along with the material. Obviously, well, they're a component still, but obviously the material is not a representation of what physically should be there, so it has to be rerun. So we'll do just that. We'll go up to button 1, and we will run what we've selected as the component. You also have the ability to only run revised QNet components, so if there's multiple red cones. And let's go ahead and bring that back in with button 2. And now you have 2 separate connections of single angle bolted. So they come in as their 2 separate components. Everything's good, no red cone. Next is rotating members. So if you already have a connection and you're going to rotate that beam, you don't want to have the listener come up, have to either delete or re-engineer immediately. You have other things that you have to move and adjust further and further. So let's do the same thing here and rerun this. Go back to button 2 and bring that in. And there we are, it's been rerun. Green cone, everything's good to go. Next is mirroring members. So one thing you want to remember is when you mirror something, you still have to pay attention to the start and end handle items. So that you're going to want to swap when you do that, but you want to make sure when you swap, it swaps the handle, but it doesn't swap the UDA information. So that would need to be swapped or revised as well, because you don't just have to rerun when you move something. You can do it with multiple different UDA updates and everything to go along with it. So we'll bring this one back down. And you'll get the same connection just on the other side of that beam. Okay, let's go to copying members. So when we copy these main members, we're going to copy them over. When we do that, the materials, the connection materials are not going to be there. Okay, so you can copy that, but previously we had some issues with UDA information and giving us some problems. Well, now when you copy, you can just rerun, and it will allow you to bring a connection back in there without any hesitation or problems. All right, next up is extending members. So whether you are actually physically extending a member to make it longer or you're moving your end to make it shorter, again, you're going to get the handle, the component is going to turn red. You're going to be able to rerun that. And you should get the same connection that comes right back. Now, if it's an identical connection, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to adjust the materials that are already there. It's just going to bypass and leave it as it was. Now, re-engineering multiple components. So as you can see, I've done something to these to make them all red. Now I can select all of those and say submit from button 1, and when they're ready, go to button 2, submit that, and those are going to be rerun. And if it's a brand new connection, it will definitely bring that connection in. And if it's not, it'll bypass it and leave it alone. So you'll notice session notifications. So when we hit button 2 and we bring a connection back in, whether it's successful or non-successful, you're going to get a notification. And it has a GUID number associated. You have the ability to just close it, or you can say save. You'll go ahead and save that file, whatever you want to call it. And as soon as you do that and open it up, it is exactly that notification. Which GUID was brought in with which session, so on and so forth.
All right. Next, we have design revisions. So very similar to what we just did, but this is now specific to loads and profiles, adjusting any of that type of information.
All right, let's revise some profiles and loads. So as we know, the nature of a project will evolve, things will change, updates will come, change orders, so on and so forth. When that happens, sometimes we may have profile changes, we may have loads that also change. So in this case, we are updating the profile for the girder. Then we're going to go ahead and do the same thing for the filler beam. Now you'll notice in this process, the connection component did turn red. You will also notice the materials, they definitely don't look as they should, bolts, all of that, but that's because it needs to be rerun still. So now maybe there's also an update for the column profile. Not as common, but may happen. Same thing when it comes to the filler beam. So let's go ahead and adjust that as well. Okay. Now, as we know, we're probably going to have to update loads. So let's go ahead and bring our UDAs over. Let's see, we were good for 36 kips. Let's say about 40. So we'll go ahead and update this end location to be 40. Make sure that that stayed. We'll get that. There we go. And now let's go ahead and do the same 40 kips for the filler beam when it comes to the beam-to-beam connection. All right, so let's select the components that need to be revised. Go to button 1. There's that new dialog again, and we'll go ahead and submit all selected. We'll bring that back in with button 2. So what you should see is an updated connection for the beam-to-beam and an updated connection for the beam-to-column web. So the beam-to-beam, pretty much the same connection. Beam-to-column web, though, has added multiple columns of bolts and a lot thicker plate, larger, probably multi-pass weld. So maybe what we want to do is come in and rerun. So we've looked at this a little bit, and the fabricator decides, you know what, let's go ahead and make this extended shear plate, see if we can get away with removing copes and still have single column of bolts. And then we use sample 1 for both of these connections, but let's go ahead and try and do a double angle bolted, which is in sample 2. So let's go to set UDA job for this beam. We'll go ahead and just at the end location, make that sample 2. And we'll go to the UDA field, make sure that that did happen, it took place. There it is, sample 2. So now we can select these components and rerun them. Bring those back in. So what you will notice is on the left for the beam-to-beam, everything worked out great, but on the beam-to-column web, nothing happened. So because the connection did not work as bolted with that profile for the column, it's still a red cone, still has to be rerun, and the existing materials are still there until that happens. So we will go ahead and maybe go back to the design team and say, listen, can we keep the column how it was previously, same profile. We'll update the beam. And maybe we still want to try double angle bolted, see if we can get that to work. And in fact, we can.
Okay. Another big one people have asked about is impact to shop drawings. So parts and GUIDs, running dimensions, sections, welds. What is it going to do to my shop drawing when I have new connections or changed connections? So let's get into exactly that.
All right, let's see how revising connections impacts our shop drawings. First thing I want to point out is the GUID numbers. So I've taken these GUID numbers from their current connection for the extended shear plate, the top stabilizer. I also did the same for the bottom. And then same thing for the 4x4 5/16 angles at the double angle bolted connection. So now let's go look at the shop drawing for these. So we have everything in here: holes, dimensions, running dimensions, all of our piece marks. We've got sections cut, more running dimensions, references. We have our welds, all of our callouts, all of our dimensions to locate materials. So now let's go ahead and revise these connections. So what we're going to do is go from 15 kips to 30. We'll do this at both ends of these beams. There's that cone again turning red, so we know it has to be rerun. So we will go ahead and select those. We'll go over to button 1. We will run this as all selected. So now let's bring that back in with button 2. So the beauty of this is we did get an extra column of bolts, so things did change, but we didn't remove any materials and add new materials. So we still have the same GUID. So what we've done is we have actually just adjusted the materials that are already there. And then if the materials didn't adjust at all, they just simply stay. Nothing changes. So 4x4 5/16. Well, now it's 4x3.5 5/16, but it still has the same GUID. Now, the benefit of this is very minimal impact to your shop drawings. So let's go ahead and open the shop drawing. We'll perform updated numbering. So you will see a couple clouds here, and that's going to be some of the dimensional information on placing, as well as piece marks that will get updated. So you see that we now have added the extra column of bolts, and now we have very minimal adjustments to do. So we have to adjust a little bit in this window just to extend it out a little further, guess a little further than that as well. So we'll go ahead and do that. And then maybe just adjust the clouds, remove those. So now you can see we have very, very minimal impact to our shop drawings. And that's the whole goal here, is to not have to come in and scrub.
All right, so I'm hoping all of you really like that newer feature. So next is recap model sync and submittal packages. So we do get questions often enough, how am I going to create my submittal package, and we want to make sure that there's a video and a reference out there. Feel free to call me at any time, as you know. Let's get into syncing the model.
Let's do a recap on model sync and submittal packages. First, sync all. So we're going to go to our button 3. We're going to go ahead and inspect. Make sure we capture all the information from this model for all of our connections. And we are going to go ahead and we're going to sync all of the connections from this model and bring it into one report. So we'll just call that sample sync all. Go ahead and hit the sync all button. You'll see that sync is successful. Say OK. Now go to sync selected. So what we're really going to do is say we have a submittal package of just a sequence or multiple sequences. We'll go ahead and just select the sequence. We'll come in and give that report name. So sample sequence, and we're going to say select, sync select. So now it's only going to sync the connections associated to those. So now let's do a submittal package. So we're going to go to our project. We'll go to view reports. Then we're going to go over to the report by model sync name. Select that, go to the pull down window, go select the project we were in, the DB1. As soon as we do that, we are going to come over to select sample sync all. We'll bring that over to the include list, and we will go to all, scroll down to the bottom and say submittal package. There's our submittal package. Submittal package for sample of just the sequence. Same process, and now you can see it's just the sample sequence, a lot smaller. I like to do a save as, so we can save it as an actual HTML file. And then also archive. So when you archive, it's going to expand everything, and now you have an entire package for approval. And again, you can save that as its own file.
Okay, so finally we have QNect not installed. So what happens if it's not installed on a machine? We've had, users have that issue, and is it deleting connections? Is it losing UDA information? What's really going on here? So let's see what this update to our feature has brought us.
If QNect is not installed on your machine, is there an impact to your project? So this has been asked by a number of users, and we've had users come to us and say, we actually didn't have it on some of our machines and it's causing problems. So you'll notice in the ribbon, the Q for QNect is not there, so we do not have it installed. I'm going to go ahead and move this beam down 6 inches. Now the key thing here is the red cone. So even though QNect is not installed on this machine at this time, the re-engineer cone is still there. So I'm going to go ahead and save this model. And then we're going to now reinstall QNect, the latest and greatest version. We are going to reopen that model. Now the key thing here, because there was a non-user, is we can't just rerun it immediately. We have to go to the re-engineer field in the UDA and say yes. As soon as we do, you'll notice the beam moves back into position with the connection. Now we can select that component, go to button 1, and we're going to rerun this. We will run it all selected, submit. Now the beautiful thing about this, it will come in as it should, and we don't want to have to scrub drawings. So even though this originated this move originated from a non-QNect user that did not have it installed. And then we reconnected. Let's go now to the shop drawing, and all you're going to see are some clouds when it comes to running dimensions, because it has moved that 6 inches from its original state. But those running dimensions are to the material that they should be. Nothing has actually changed, so scrubbing is very minimal.
All right, so let's get some Q&A going.
We did have some questions, and Mark, actually this one's from Ron. I think he needs some clarification about the listener tool. He said, so there is no more listener tool?
Yeah, so the listener tool exists, but not to the user. It's not going to, it's there in the background as normal, but it's not going to affect you. It's not going to pop up. You're not going to have to re-engineer immediately or delete anything. That's what the red cone portion of this is for. So the listener tool, you can say goodbye to that.
Okay. Taro wants to confirm that the recording will be made available, and it will be made available. It will be sometime early next week, and we will post it to our website and then also put it out on social media. And I have a list of people who have registered and attended, so we'll make sure that you get that as well. And then Charles asks, when will this update be effective?
I can get that one for you. So good morning, Mr. Chuck. Yes, everything I'm being told is this will be going out tonight. So basically when everybody starts on Monday, then you will have the ability to start using this newer version. Those weekend warriors out there, obviously they'll start testing this a little bit earlier and noticing things. Make sure to call. Let us know if you have any questions or anything like that. With the craziness of distance learning and everything, my son's been in my office with me, as some of you know, but next couple of weeks, he's going to be on fall break. So let's start scheduling some training sessions and get going on a lot of this. Another thing to mention is every video that you saw is broken out into separate videos. And when we issue the recording for the webinar, we will also issue the link, a link for each one of those separate videos. So you don't have to go rifling through and find out which one it was you were looking for.
Yep. Okay. Can I re-engineer as many red cones that I want at a time?
Yes. So as many as you select, you can go ahead and re-engineer those. You can do the re-engineer without selecting them, that other option. Just make sure you're paying attention. If there's another connection in a different sequence somewhere you're not aware of, you could potentially make that re-engineer. Not necessarily a bad thing, but somebody else could be working on it at the same time.
Okay. Jeff asks.
Also, sorry, let me also mention something about the re-engineer. If you have a red cone in a model, we want to make sure you're aware of it. You may not see it. You may not be aware of it. You may have your cones turned off in a filter. So when you save your model on your local, it will prompt you and let you know that there are QNet connections that still need to be re-engineered.
Okay. Jeff asks, will hitting undo twice still be required to undo a single command?
No. So what you end up doing is, a lot of people end up accidentally double clicking or triple clicking. If you actually just pause for a second, hit undo, it will undo for you. And if you do notice something with that for some reason, please let us know and we'll jump on it and make sure that that does not happen for you. But within the testing of all of this, I personally tested all of these features myself. I did not run into any issues with that.
Okay. Mark asks, what is being used for connection design forces for these connections?
Sure. So it sounds like maybe a newer user. These forces are all done in our web-based application. So we have an online portion where we fill out all the preferences. We can do tables, so on and so forth. So if you are a new user or just haven't had that experience feel free to reach out to us. Maybe contact Christian. You'll see the next slide that comes up after Q&A with information to contact, and we can set up a live demo for you.
Yeah, and that's for everyone. We know that sometimes these webinars generate more questions, more interest, and we definitely encourage people to reach out for some one-on-one or with your team, come on and see a demo where we can get specific into the types of projects you work on.
I see one. I like this question, actually. So for the session naming, are those the entire model, or does each user set their own preferences? So I take it you're talking about button 3, where we can tell end 1 and end 2 which preferences we want to use for those. Those are UDA fields. So as soon as it is tagged, it's not user specific. It is now living in that live model. So if somebody else were to run it, it would still use whatever the other user that was prepping this model or just simply adjusting has told that to be. Great question.
Okay, yep. I don't know how anonymous attendee got in. I thought I was pretty good at Zoom, but they asked if you guys can make gold out of iron, and we try to answer every question. If we do know how to do that, I would like to know. I'm not able to.
Let's put it this way. If we knew how to make gold out of iron, I would not be here in this webinar. I'd be on a beach somewhere.
I want to know more. How'd you get your name anonymous attendee? We have the other ones, but I think we got Jeff's, Breton's, Mark's, and I think we pretty much. I'm sorry, I missed one up here. What if I have a shear plate and want to then have an extended shear plate, and I already have shop drawings?
Sure. So as you saw in the example, we had an extended shear plate, and it technically still stayed as an extended shear plate. It just added a column of bolts, and it kept the same GUID. We physically just adjusted that material in the model. So if you have associative notes or something like that, when you're actually pulling running dimensions and tagging information in a drawing, it's going to keep that by nature. Now, if you go from a shear plate to an extended shear plate, same thing. It's still going to keep that because we try to keep the GUID anywhere possible. Now, if you end up going from a shear plate to an angle connection, that will actually be a new GUID. It does not adjust what's physically there. So just like any actual change that you would be used to, you would have to scrub that drawing.
Okay. I think we have everything answered from the chat and from the Q&A. I do want to encourage you to follow us primarily on LinkedIn. And also we do tweet and Facebook, but LinkedIn's our primary place of sharing news and information with you. And I'll be sending out an email to the people that registered with that, but it might be Monday or Tuesday of next week. So anyway, that's it. I think
I do have one thing in closing.
Yeah.
As I tell everybody, and it's like a broken record, I do encourage constructive criticism. There is no wrong question or thing to bring up to us. We want to grow and evolve as a company, but as a software for our users. So please, if you find something that you think could be better, if you don't like how something is, if you think something needs, something very specific, let us know. The only way we actually know this is when you tell us, because you guys are the ones out there doing everything in these live situations where I'm involved in projects, but you guys are day to day, crunching and going through. So.
Yeah, and we've had several people that, 6 months ago, we weren't able to do something. 3 months ago, we weren't able to. And then today, we do it, and we do it very well. So the best thing to do is to keep those projects coming and stay in touch with your account manager, of course, with me, Jeff, Josh, and we want to help you all be successful ending 2020, and we want to help you get a big start on 2021. So happy Steel Day, everyone. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend, and look forward to talking with y'all.